without trust, you don't have families wanting to bring their children to the centres.
What could we be doing better? Would you challenge us to do things differently in any way? Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of Mic Drop. Mic Drop is a podcast that is designed to talk about important leadership issues within the sector and how we deliver them at Eden Academy. So I'm diving in today to talk to one of our parents about the Eden Academy experience, but also what matters when it comes to deciding on early learning. So welcome to the podcast, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
We're so happy to have you both in the podcast and as part of our family, our broader Eden family. We know that choosing care at any time is a really important decision, and so your feedback today will be valuable both for us and for other families in the sector. Jasmine, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I've got one daughter who is almost 4 years old now. I myself personally work as a physiotherapist in both clinic but also in elite sport, which keeps me really busy. Hubby also is a partner in his own law firm, so also very busy at the moment.
Very busy. And you work full-time?
Full-time, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Blair's 4. What does Blair love?
I think she was very close to being a boy at birth. She loves anything from princesses and dolls right through to trucks and dinosaurs. So very active toddler, I would say, and is always on the go.
It's good that children have so much diversity these days and that they can be free to explore different sides of themselves. I remember growing up and having a Barbie doll that was a little bit out of scope. So it was a little bit more challenging, but these days we let our children explore what they want.
Yeah. I think it's important as well not to stick to what we traditionally know as gender norms. I really encourage my daughter to get a broad scope of everything she enjoys, whether that's, what we traditionally know is a gender norm for her or not. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we embrace that in care as well?
Definitely within our centre. I think the really important thing is the educators value the interests of the children quite highly, and they don't really direct play. It's all up to what the child's interested in, which they take enormous joy in.
Tell me, it sounds like you've got a very busy schedule. What does it look like for your family?
Yeah, so hubby and I are both full-time. Up until last year, I was travelling interstate regularly with a sporting team, so I would fly away most weekends of each week for their games. Hubby would be a stay-at-home dad. Quite often my days were quite large, as were his, so we would be the ones sort of picking up my daughter sort of later in the evenings, but it was always nice to know that she was cared for and supported right through the entirety of that day, whether that was meant it was near dinner time and she needed more snacks, or Fatima, the chef at our centre, would cook us an extra meal on the side to help us out because she knew that we were really busy and rushed, and by the time we got home we didn't have enough time to cook dinner and bed bath. So I think our centre has been amazing at supporting us as a family who are both trying to juggle quite stressful full-time jobs.
When it came to putting Blair into care, did you decide on full-time, or what was your early decision, and how old was she?
She was 10 months when we first put her in.
Very young.
Young, yeah, which we were umming and ahhing about at the beginning, whether that was too young. I actually went back to work at 6 months.
Wow.
Thankfully, again, for my in-laws being around the corner, they sort of chipped in during that time. I suppose the main factor between the 6 and 10 months was she a little bit too young at 6 months to go. We weren't sure with our first child. You don't know until you know.
How does she settle or work with full-time?
I actually think for Blair, she thrives in amongst other children. She thrives with stimulus. And I think being a parent, it's really hard to provide that stimulus all hours of the day. It's exhausting. And I think as well, sometimes as parents, we either lack the motivation or the skills set to provide the right education for our little ones. And I think having educators that are better trained than ourselves in that area is really important, because some of the stuff that Blair learns at Eden is invaluable. She comes home and I'm like, wow, where did you learn that? Like, I wouldn't have thought of teaching you that right now.
I'm sure she comes home with some things that you're not happy with either. Like, it might be the flu, or she's changed her clothes with her best friend, or she's learnt a rude word.
Yeah.
What are some of the things for a new parent that you have to be real about when starting care that is going to happen?
The biggest thing that I learnt, that my mother-in-law actually, who's a gentle soul, but also, as I say, she's a retired teacher. She told me that you've just got to let go, because you cannot control everything. Mm-hmm. You can't control it at this age, and you definitely won't control it when they're at school. Mm-hmm. They are going to pick up sickness. They're going to learn silly words that they may not be allowed to say. It's more about how you coach them and encourage them through that, and teaching them wrong from right.
Yep.
So I think learning that at an earlier time in her childhood really helped us, because nothing really comes as a surprise to us at the moment, and just coaching her on the right way to do things and the wrong way, and encouraging good behaviour.
When you talk to that, it actually reminds me of our positioning around nurturing curiosity. Like, instead of needing to control what a child does or says, or it needing to be a certain way, the more curious we can be as a parent, the better outcome, I think, and relationship we'll have with our child. Curiosity is something that is really evident in what we do every day in Eden with our children. But as a parent, how could the nurturing curiosity apply to you to help you be a better parent?
I've reflected on that recently, because I think myself growing up, I was forced by my mother to do right and wrong, but not from curiosity, from, the old mentality where, you tell a child when they're wrong, but you don't often sort of encourage when they are doing something right, or encourage curiosity. I came from my grandparents, who believed that children should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm trying to rewrite the narrative for us a little bit in encouraging that curiosity, because I think it really, for young children, encourages independence and a sense of self. Mm-hmm. And I really want her to grow up with a strong sense of self, and belief that she can, do amazing things. And I think that comes from curiosity. Wow. Yeah.
That's another thing I hadn't thought of. It's really good. And it makes me think about how curiosity might remove fear. Like, I think as we grew up in a certain generation, we were told that if you did it wrong, you would get in trouble, or there was fear in doing it this way. But if you can apply curiosity, you can remove the fear and allow children to be more of who they need to be.
Yeah, well, how do they learn without making mistakes?
That's true.
In essence, so you can't be fearful of making mistakes or getting things wrong, because how are you meant to do it differently the next time? I think without that curiosity and without the trust that they can fail and learn from that, then we're not doing a good job.
When it came to enrolling in care or deciding on care, what are some of the key factors that played out for you? What was important?
So we toured around several different centres at the beginning. We toured quite a large centre that was meant to be brand new, but what we soon came to realise that we thought our daughter may just be another number to that centre. We got a feel that the educators weren't necessarily interested in her. When we toured Eden, we got a much different vibe from that. Immediately, the educators came and greeted us. We were offered, I think, a tea or coffee, at reception desk. Blair was offered a play date where she sat down. All the educators and the children sort of frolicked around her, and it was really nice to see that everyone was taking such an interest in her. The other factor I noticed was the community. Yep. So when other parents would walk in the door, we saw them coming and going during that visit. We noticed that they were greeted by, as I said, the chef at the front kitchen or whoever was on the front desk, and the educators all knew children's names and the parents' names. Little things like that, I think, go a really long way to making someone feel valued. Yep. And so that really sort of made our decision for us quite easy.
That's really great, because it does talk to what we try to emulate in the Eden difference, It is really easy for someone to put that on in the first tour or the first experience, and then sometimes you sign up to these things and it's quite different. Has what you expected evolved to be true, or have we fallen over at times? What's your experience been like?
Yeah, no. As I said, my daughter's been there since she was 10 months and she's almost 4 now, so she's been there for several years. And I think in every class that she's been highly valued by whoever the educators are in that classroom, even to the point where some of the educators that Blair's come across in some of her classes are to date still the safest people that she regards. She might be upset one day coming into kindy and she'll say, I want to just go and give Taylor a hug or Hannah a hug. And she feels really safe with these people, which is, just amazing to hear as a parent.
What does she love most about Eden, do you think?
Apart from the amazing educators, I think the resources there. I think the play equipment she really loves. They've got amazing climbing frames and sand pits and cubby houses. I think the inside activities. I think she's again really loves that stimulus. Mm-hmm. And so different stimulus each day that the educators put together at each centre is, I know how much time that must take, and I really appreciate and value that because Blair just, she comes home and loves talking about her day every day.
We try and stand out with our resources, and I don't know if you know as a parent, but we've just made a commitment to annually upgrading and updating our resources. Chris and Sean are really invested in making sure that we always have enough for our children to be engaged with. Mm-hmm. There's a strong link between resources and safety. So children who are engaged are less likely to have incidents. So you'll see over the coming months that we're replacing our tables, our chairs, our rugs, our educator chairs, and we're also injecting a whole lot more resources for our children, but also for our families so that they can see where their investment in their child is going.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm really excited because I think it's amazing already. So yeah, that'll be super exciting for the kids to explore all that. That's really good.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
What are some important parent conversations that you might be hearing at the moment amongst family groups that you think is important for Eden to know?
I think of recent times, the biggest one is around child safety. Mm-hmm. I think as a parent, you're constantly worried about your child's safety and you would do anything to protect that, especially the innocence of them. Mm-hmm. We've all sort of seen and heard what's been out in the media, and I think Eden have done a really good job from what I can see about protecting our children. They've changed a lot of their safeguarding around, for instance, their photos and reporting on the app, which is really great. Signs up around, for parents and teachers not to have their phones in the centre. So negating that risk as well is really important. And I think we all feel a little bit safer and amongst our parent group for that.
Yeah, that's great. The work of safety is never done. Like we never get to a point where we're like, okay, we can stop improving on it. I think it's something we have to consistently push and evolve as both a provider and as a community to make sure children are safe. How do you determine if I know you've mentioned the photos just then and it might be in the conversations, but is there anything extra that helps you determine that your child is safe?
I think the other thing I think about with regards to safety is probably the transparency of conversation between educator and families. I think that's really important that the educators know that even if something difficult comes up with the child, it's about being transparent and having those conversations early rather than trying to sweep stuff under the rug. And it might be something really insignificant at the time, but I think it's really, really important because that builds trust, and without trust you don't have families wanting to bring their children to the centres.
I think that's a really important point. Where I think we need to do, or both at Eden and the sector, a better job in safety is the retention of educators. Having the same faces, the same team, the same people in every single day is where safety, or the heart of safety, really lies. And I think from what you just said is important is I think the psychological safety of the educators is just as important as the child safety, because everyone needs to feel safe, to have a safe environment. Like mum needs to feel safe, educator needs to feel safe, to have the conversation with you, and then child needs to feel safe. So it's about how do we as an entire community build safety amongst one another in the way we might respond when things don't go well that will lift the overall safety environment.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because it goes back to, supported staff will stay.
Yes.
So I think that's really valuable and not around just the safety aspect of it, but making sure that the children feel supported by having someone that's been there for a long period of time and not constantly seeing a new face.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I bet Hannah and Taylor have been around for a while.
They have been there for a while. Both taught my daughter when she was in the nursery, and then had her again during toddlers. So I can't value them enough because, as I said, they've created such a safe and supportive environment for my daughter, so much so that she wants to go and hug them in the mornings, when she's feeling upset.
That's great.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time when you haven't felt safe?
Not to any fault of anyone, but obviously it's quite daunting when you first send your little one to childcare, and especially to a childcare where you don't know if it's going to work or not. And so sending Blair at 10 months was quite daunting for us. So for me, that felt really unsafe. I remember feeling really stressed whether I was doing the right thing. And the first sort of week was really tough. And what probably made it better as a parent was the constant reassurance and updates that they would send, knowing that she was new to the centre, knowing that she was quite young as well. So I think, it goes a long way when you get updates on, their day, if they've eaten their food, if they've had their naps, if she's happy, sad or otherwise.
It sounds like we're getting it right in the safety, the relationships, the communication, the environments. They're all things that we really strive towards always delivering. What could we be doing better? Because no one's perfect.
The main thing I've noticed since Blair's moved into the kindergarten room now is she's a little bit probably less settled than she was. I wonder if their transition could have been done a tiny bit better.
Yep.
I think obviously there is a transition period where they go and spend time in certain rooms prior to that changeover happening, but there was still a lot that we battled with at home with her not liking that specific transition. And I wonder if getting to know the teachers in that classroom a little bit more before going in, or having a common teacher move from her last classroom into the new classroom, which didn't happen this year. So she didn't feel, as safe to sort of go up to any teacher this year. It's
also an important point because at Eden we're currently working on reigniting moments. So there's moments that really matter. It might be the drop-off or the pick-up, or it might be the first 3 weeks when you start in a centre, and transitions is within that moments. What moments do you think matter most?
It's never any big moment for me. It's all small moments.
Yep.
It's the moment that you walk in the door and people know your name, people know your child's name. You walk through the different yards behind the classrooms and all the teachers from different classes greet your daughter even though they haven't specifically taught her. Those little moments that all add up to making us feel like we've made the right decision with Eden.
That's good. And if you were going to talk to a new parent that was looking to enrol in care, what might be 2 or 3 things you'd tell them about enrolling in care in general, number one, and then enrolling at Eden?
Yeah, so obviously, as I mentioned, it's quite daunting,
Yep.
Especially if it's your first child. You question yourself a lot. I think gut instinct has a lot to say for a lot of the decision making in enrolling in childcare. I would say when you're walking into a centre, look at, how the educators are conducting themselves, obviously, number one. Are they interested in you being there? Do they want to get to know you and your child? Are the educators also supported? Because you want to make sure that they're supported in the role that they're doing. They're also getting, continual professional development or along those lines so that they're offering the most they can to your child. And then particularly with Eden, you've really made a well-rounded community, I think, with the staff that are there at the centre. I think the support that's offered At Eden, at our particular centre, I haven't noticed a great staff turnover. Everyone's stayed consistent there.
Can you think of any ways that we could do a better job in hearing our families at all levels to be able to make the right decisions? Because it's very locally owned at the moment. Would you challenge us to do things differently in any way?
Negating, I suppose. I know in childcare it must get exhausting because you get a lot of feedback, probably when it's, hit the fan a little bit, to say the least. So I think negating some of those instances from the get-go would be probably really beneficial. And I don't know what the specific answer to that is, whether it's having a forum every so often where, you encourage parents to come along and voice thoughts or opinions or share ideas with the centre, or whether it's, someone from head office like yourself, coming to a bigger forum where, centres on the Gold Coast are welcome to come and do the same thing before they feel the need to really sort of voice their grievances specifically to the centre.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that over the coming 12 months we need to think about how we build a panel of families to be able to work with us in a proactive way, because you're right, by the time they come to us it's often working against us because the grievance hasn't been settled in the right way. And it's from a place of frustration. So we have a conference, our centre manager conference, coming up next week called Eat and Grow, and we'll ask a number of families to come along and panel us on the things that matter and where we can do better.
Just goes down to that whole growth mindset, doesn't it?
Love that. Yeah. Yes, it does.
So I think it's really valuable. What I've learnt in my professional career is that you've got to continuously have a growth mindset, because without it, you won't grow and you won't progress. So it's really encouraging to hear that, that's something that Eden and yourself take on board really highly, because it means that our children are, going to be really well looked after.
And I think, as you say that, I think that as an athlete, you'd be well aware that growth only comes from being uncomfortable. Yeah. So it's in having the really deep and uncomfortable conversations on a regular basis that will help us uncover the growth that needs to occur. Sometimes we want to keep it nice versus real, and so we miss the mark. So I hope for our families we can continue to have great conversations around uncomfortable things that really matter. So I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask you, Jasmine, what questions do you have for me?
Is there anything that you witnessed when your child was going through childcare that made you want to change anything with your experience now?
I think so. My child went to a community care type provider, and the environments were probably just not where I thought they could be. It didn't seem to have a lot of resources. I felt like it was grounded, but I wanted him to be doing more, to be honest. It was very community-based, which I loved. He learnt a lot and he felt very safe, but I thought that he could be stimulated in different ways.
My only last question would be around what you see as the probably one or two most important factors in running a successful centre or centres. Like what do you value the most when you're looking at where you put your resources?
When it comes to the service itself, safety is always on. I think that's the most important thing. But then I think the second thing is really communication. Everything comes down to the way that we can communicate with parents around the big and the small things that really impact a child's life. So having a centre manager that is prepared to get in and have ongoing conversations is what I think matters most. And then holding on to them. So that they're able to have the impact from the time the child starts to the time a child finishes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the only thing on top of that is, as I said before, is acknowledging that we don't always get it right. Like when it comes to human services, there are so many things that can go wrong, like 'cause you just can't manufacture behaviour. So being humble enough to say, we're going to get it right 6 or 7 times and we're going to completely mess it up 3 times, but we're going to do something about it and take responsibility. It's probably the most important part of our business. And if we can all take responsibility, we can all do great things together.
I like that. That's really nice to hear.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Jasmine. It's been so insightful. I think we're really lucky to have you as part of our community. And I know that what you've shared with us today will be very helpful for new families, existing families, and for the voice of our families in Eden Academy. And we'd love to hear more from other families, but I'm so appreciative of the short time we've had together.
Thank you for having me. I do really appreciate it, because I know quite often parents' voices aren't valued, and I hope that being here with you today provides a voice for the parents, whether they agree with my opinions or not. I think it's really valuable to be seen and heard as a parent, and that Eden will listen to us as parents as well and take on that feedback.
For those families that are looking to have a greater voice within our community and in the sector in general, we are looking to put together an Eden Family Panel. We'll put the details of that at the bottom of the screen, and we can't wait to hear from you. So welcome to the stage, Chris and Sean.
This is the story of our life, by the way. You have no idea.